Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Reforged podcast. My name is Drew, and it is a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we can appreciate God's creation, the world that He's made around us more, how to live with an attitude of gratitude, as I like to say, and how that gratitude can bring a lot of great joy and appreciation in our life and can draw us closer to God and to those around us as well. It'll be a bit of a lighter, more lighthearted episode. So I hope you guys enjoy. Before I get started, I just want to remind you that we just wrapped up 2 weeks ago a series on some of the logical arguments for God, a series where we introduced some of the basic tenets of three of the most common, most popular logical arguments for the existence of God. So if you haven't already, please go check out those, especially the last episode of that series. The last episode of that series did not get as much traction as the other episodes, so I'd encourage you to go check it out if you haven't listened to it. I think it's really good and beneficial, so please do that. And thank you for all the comments and the support that you gave on those on the episodes of that series. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it and found value in it, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode as well. As for prayer requests, a quick reminder: if you have any prayers that you would like people to be praying for, please feel free to leave those in the comment section of the YouTube or the Spotify show. I will be happy to pray for you. I also have a prayer request of my own. In just a bit here, I'm going to be heading off to, and actually, when this episode goes up, I'll be at a junior high ministries camp with my church, and I'll be serving there as a small group leader. So I appreciate prayers over that. Just that's a very impactful experience for the students that attend, and just prayers for my health and wellness while I'm there, as well as that I'm able to really steward these kids well and lead them through the work that God's going to be doing in their hearts during this weekend. So please be praying for me for that as well. But without further ado, we did take a brief break last week after finishing that series, but I'm happy to be back, and let's just get right into it. Kind of actually segueing off of this series we just created, one of the arguments we talked about was the creation argument. Of course, as Christians, we believe that God created the world and created the heavens and the earth and everything in it. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and then Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are accounts going through of the process they took to form and shape the world and create nature and animals and eventually people as well. And so that's a really crucial part of what we believe as Christians. And there's a lot of great beauty in His creation, a lot of things that we get to know and learn about God and His character by experiencing His creation. And so I just like to take a moment in this episode to kind of go over, some of those things that I try to be aware of, be noticing in my life, and that I'm very grateful for, and usually draw me closer to God and make me feel His presence very strongly. Um, so the first category to talk about would just be nature, scenic landscapes, the world that we inhabit. There's many beautiful things in this world, and you can go through Google and you can find countless beautiful images um, in nature. Mountains and rivers and seas, oceans, forests. One of my personal favorites is waterfalls. I love waterfalls. Um, and everything about this world can be beautiful in its own way. Even places that are seen as barren, like deserts, there's some very beautiful pictures in places where you'll see desert environments, or same with like the Arctic, right? Very beautiful there as well. And yeah, I really like nature. I really like going on walks with friends and family and loved ones. And I really like getting to experience the beauty in God's creation as I walk through it. Just noticing the trees. Sometimes the colors or the shapes of the leaves are really pretty, and um, sunsets and sunrises are very beautiful as well. I love enjoying those. And I love when you're walking towards the evening and the sky becomes this shade of pink and orange and yellow. It's very, very beautiful. I love it a lot, and I'm sure that everyone has their own examples of things like that they really stand out. One thing which I'll try to get a picture included of this if I can find it and get it in here, but one thing that really, excuse me, stands out to me, I really like. this spot where I go to run on Saturdays with Team Road Vision. Our team runs as a group, and we run in this park. And in the parking lot, uh, there's a point where this long trail that goes through the woods, and then it actually connects up with a bunch of different like towns and cities and things. It's a really long trail, but we start from this point in the parking lot, and we usually start running and we go one way. If we go, excuse me, sorry, I'm very tired today. If we go the other way, um, there's a small park over there, and there's this little bridge that you cross over a stream to get there. And that is just one of my favorite spots in the whole world. I love going there after my run, taking some time to pray and just rest from running. And it's just beautiful. You hear the rushing water, and you see the water flowing downward, and it goes over certain rocks. And there's a bunch of trees that overhang it. It's just very beautiful. And I'll try to include a picture at some point here, so you can see it. But that's one of my favorite spots, and I recommend that all of us, be more cognizant of spending time out in nature, because it's good to be out and be active. And I think we live in a very distractible world where even the things that we do for rest, like when it's watching a show or a movie, playing a game, reading a book, like sometimes we can get even sidetracked and distracted in that, because it provides a kind of rest that's important where we can turn off our mind, um, either by deeply focusing on something or by just not really thinking at all. And that can be beneficial, but it can also be very dangerous because we can become apathetic and disconnected from our lives if that's the only form of rest that we seek. Um, and I think the time that I spend out in nature going on walks is very beneficial, both just mentally and physically, but also spiritually, because it gives me time to think and talk with God, to observe what's around me. It's just a very peaceful time. And so, excuse me, I would recommend, if you don't already, taking some time in your day and in your week to do that. And if you do, like, start taking note of some of your favorite places to go and walk, and spend some time with God there, and just see, the beauty in His creation. Often, the two things that I notice, and particularly when I observe God's creation, is I observe the vastness of it, the sheer scale of it, and I'm just overwhelmed and impressed by how God can make something so complex and large and beautiful. Um, and that especially goes with things like waterfalls and mountains and forests. You just see all of these things. And that's on like a macro level, I think of those things. And then on a micro level, I think of I think, if you look at just a single tree in a forest, or if you look at a rock on a path, you'll notice that there's deep, beautiful, intricate design in everything. Like that design that you see on the large scale of what God's made. When you start zooming in on the little parts that make those things up, you'll see that that same level of detail is there. Um, and so I can see a tree that I find really beautiful and in a really beautiful place and hone in on that. I can see just the larger picture, the forest of trees that it's in, and both are really beautiful in different, unique ways. And so God can, speak and reveal things about Himself and the power of His character and presence through nature. Um, Another thing that stands out to me is animals. I always enjoy seeing animals when I'm out walking about, and there are some animals that I think that make me think of beauty and serenity, and that fill me with awe. Um, Usually it's like birds or rabbits or deer. Like I just see them, and there's just this overwhelming sense of peace that washes over me because you're seeing something beautiful. And a lot of these animals, well, all these animals that I mentioned at least, they're animals of prey. So, um, they're not animals that they're animals that are scared of us. And so when you get to see them um, nearby, you see them at peace. You see them. just that fills me with peace too. To see a creature that um, is just so beautifully made and can bring a lot of joy. Birds can be, really pretty and colorful, or even if they're not, just I like seeing like hawks or falcons swooping overhead. My dad really does too. Um, just because there's just something really powerful about seeing them. There's a lot of, I think, imagery in animals about things with our spirit, and things like freedom and peace. And those are things that I think of that are fulfilled in the Holy Spirit that resides within me and in Christ and in the Lord, and things that I see reflected through His creation of these animals too. Another more fun one. Um, I'm very fond of squirrels. I I went on a lot of walks at school with my girlfriend, and we started to be really fond of squirrels, mostly because she was already really fond of squirrels. And then it just seemed that they always seem to be around whenever she is, and so whenever I see squirrels, it reminds me of her. So I enjoy it for that reason too. Um, but also they're so funny usually, and I think it reminds me just that God has a sense of humor. And while there can be a type of joy that comes from things like peace and beauty, there's a joy that comes in just being silly and funny too. And and I've seen squirrels doing silly things like chasing each other around a tree, or I actually saw a squirrel, like I watched a squirrel jump out of a trash can with a bagel and then run away with it, and it was really funny. Um, so I really enjoy seeing squirrels now because they're funny. And I know that for a lot of people too, like their pets, dogs and cats. If you live more rural, you might have some more um, animals like cattle or sheep or pigs or horses, things like that. I know people get a lot of joy out of their pets too, and just seeing, a lot of times they're there to comfort us in ways, which is really cool. That pets, although they don't have the same level of conscience that humans do, that they're conscious of our happiness and then also our sadness too, and that they can be a source of comfort, just as the Lord is the greatest source of comfort. But also, they can be just silly and fun, have their own little personalities, that make us smile and remind us of how intentional and individual God is with all of His creation. Um, and then the final one too is, I think we sometimes overlook this one, but people are God's creation, and it says in Genesis that we were created in the image of God. God created us male and female in His image, and so that means that the people in your life are actually God's creation around you, and can point you towards Him. And I think we see this in relationship with the family. I know that not everyone has a perfect family relationship, but we see that the intention that God has for us is to have family, and that in that family there's to be love and support and a reflection of um, to be a reflection of God's fatherly love for us. Um, and that also there's to be, training and teaching and correction and rebuke, so that as the word asks other believers to do, and as Christ commands His ministry to turn from sin, family is a place where we're meant to be raised to love and serve God our Father, and to experience through our parents and other family members the kind of love that God has for us too. And it's never perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But I'm grateful because I have a family that I love very much, and that always strives to do that, always strives to steward each other closer to God, that values time with one another, um, that loves and supports and encourages us to do really, hard things, difficult things, to pursue our best, knowing that we can do those things. And so my family really reminds me of God's love and the importance of relationship with Him. And I see that reflected. I see a lot of the things that I think I've been gifted with by God and that come naturally to me. Um, I can see our result of being raised by my family. And then some of the things that I maybe have more trouble with and are more difficult for me. Um, I have a lot of role models and influences in my family that do those things well, and I can look up to as an example. And so I'm really grateful for my family. Also, friends. Friends are great. Um, Friends that follow Christ help lead you towards Christ. They have really deep conversations with you about your faith. Sometimes those conversations can be really difficult and challenging, but um, I have great friends that you know have a faith of their own, and they share that with me, and we challenge each other on things, and um, we also get opportunities maybe to serve together or to do a Bible study or devotional together. Um, and especially at college, it's a really special, unique time where I get to go through life together with a lot of my friends at this stage, and we spend so much time in the same place. Like, it's hard not to grow closer to each other, and it's hard not to have a strong relationship with them, and it's hard not to uh, have that blossom into these deeper, enriching, faith-based friendships where um, we're talking about serious stuff like our plans for the future and relationships and our families, the families that we come from, um, and our faith, and just putting it all together. And it's just been really cool because college especially has just been an opportunity to do that in a way that I've never had a chance to do that before, and it is really special. Like as people who went to college and graduated since say, it really is a valuable time where you forge a lot of really strong relationships that help shape you and who you are. Um, and then of course, loved ones. If you're in a relationship, relationships can be a really good source of joy, of course. But they also come with a lot of challenges, and I think ultimately it's that combination of being rooted in love, but facing the challenges that come with that and coming out of it stronger. Um, it's really reflective of the relationship that God desires with us in faith. Um, and I think that faith-based relationships are really great because we get to see not just what God is doing in our lives and working through us as individuals in our own walks with Him, but now you have someone else you're coming alongside. Um, and God's not just working in both of you individually. God's not just using each of you to strengthen each other, because that's obviously a big part of it, is where you'll have opportunities to share faith moments, what God's been teaching you and working in your life with the other person, and it'll be impactful and relevant and beneficial, and vice versa. But also, it's an opportunity to really grow together. And something I've really valued about my relationship that I've had these past couple months is that it is centered around Christ and around God, and He's at the center of it, and that means that um, the way that we define our relationship and the way that we treat our relationship is the way that we know from His Word He intends for us to treat it. And then when it gets more, specific, like everyone's relationship obviously is different and is nuanced. So the Bible provides really clear and great instructions on the major things to do and to not to do. Um, but then even within navigating within that framework, God's done a lot of work in our hearts through prayer and reading His Word and conversations together that have helped guide us and make it clear. And I really trust that He's building in us a relationship um, that can stand the test and last, and that's because it's rooted in Him. It's rooted on the rock, and I think when we look at marriage statistics and we see, that the divorce rate in the US is like over 50% almost, that's a really sad thing, but it's not surprising because our culture has moved so far away from what God defines marriage to be. Um, and it's moved into this idealistic, like it's no different than the relationships that we already have. The commitment level is not really there. The foundation, the values is not really there. It's just simply a choice that people make because they think it'll solve problems, or they think it'll make them happy, or they think it's just a natural next step. Um, and I think we don't take marriage seriously enough in the eyes of God anymore. And so again, that's why I'm really grateful, and I recommend highly that you come to God, both in your own time and together, about your relationship, and you lift up really difficult and challenging things to Him. You allow Him to move through that, because I know that in my relationship, been through a lot of really good times, and also been through some hard times too. And God's worked in both of those, and ultimately He's guiding us and leading us to be stronger together. And when you make that commitment to another person in a relationship, that's not just a commitment that you should be making yourself, but that's a commitment that you should be inviting God into, because He's, again, the sustainer, and He is the one who will bridge the gaps where you're going to, in your commitment, you make promises that you want to keep and you need to keep, but you're not going to be perfect, and you're going to fall short, and you're not going to be a perfect partner to somebody. And so God helps guide both closer to Him, and doing so closer to each other, so that that reflection is more like the love of God each and every day. Um, and so I really recommend, if you are in a relationship, that you make sure that it's centered around God, and if you aren't, that when you do pursue one, that it's centered around God. And that the final group of people, because I've talked about some specific group of people that tend to be close to us, but the body of Christ as a whole, other believers, and I'd even go as far to say too, will focus on other believers because they often best reflect the qualities of God when they're pursuing a faith and they're trying to live a life that allows God to reflect that. Um, but even those who aren't, God can work through non-believers too, and hopefully in many cases that can lead to the non-believers becoming believers. But I digress. Being surrounded by the church and the body of Christ, those are a lot of loving and supportive people that can be really inspiring and really touch our hearts. And the reason I just talked about all these things, nature, animals, people, and it was kind of just like a little bit of rambling even about just things that I love and appreciate. It's all to get you to think about things that you love and appreciate in nature and animals and people, because the main point of this is gratitude. Gratitude is really important. Being thankful. Even people who aren't believers believe that gratefulness and being thankful is important to happiness. I believe that's more than that, because I believe that we're not just being thankful, but we're being thankful to God. We're grateful to God for what He's provided and blessed us with. Um, and we go through a lot of hard seasons in life, where we actually, ironically, we need gratitude. We need to be thankful in the midst of those difficult seasons, um, to really see and be aware of what God's doing through them. And when we go through all these lists of things like beautiful places in nature, funny animals, people we love, um, it's hard not to be thankful when we're conscious of those things, when we're aware and thinking of them. Um, and oftentimes, as I said, God brings the emotion of joy through our gratitude. When we are grateful to Him, we're filled with a joy and a peace. And so I think it's important to take the time in our lives to be thankful. I don't think we do that enough. And so I want us to be conscious as believers of all the things around us that we have to be grateful for. Sometimes, like I think I mentioned this on the show before, but I'll sit here, and I'll just look around my room and think about all the things, even just in my room, I can be thankful for. That I have a room, that I'm in a house, that I have a bed, that there's AC, even if I complain about how good it is. um, I have a desk and a chair. I've got my laptop to make these podcasts. I've got a bunch of cool collectibles and knickknacks I've collected from friends and family and myself over the years that I really love. And all of it is a great gift and blessing from God. And some of it matters more than others. Of course, things that, regard my safety and my health, like the bed and the chair and things like that are really important. This laptop's really important because it allows me to actually, make this show and share my faith with others. So that's really beneficial and important. Um, and then while, I can find joy in a lot of my Legos and other things, they're arguably less important, right, than other things. But all that to say, though, there's so many big and little things around us that we can be thankful for and focus on. And so I want us to do that. And a couple suggestions that I have, if you want to start being more grateful, be more conscious of that, and try things. You can try making a gratitude journal. I've done that before for stints. I usually don't keep one like continuously, but sometimes I'll have periods where I'm feeling maybe challenged or down, and I'll start writing down things that I'm grateful. At one point, I had a journal of like accomplishments I made during the day that I was proud of and that was grateful for. Um, and that's a great way. Even just start small, just like 3 things a day that you're grateful for. Um, I think another important thing too is prayer, and this is something I do all the time. When I pray, especially at night, thank God for my day and everything that happened in it. Um, and I also thank Him too. I'll say thank you for all the things that I forgot to thank you for, because there's so many things. Um, but even just being conscious of the things that we are aware of that are particularly on our minds, bringing that to God and thanking Him for those blessings is important. Also, as I mentioned, thanking Him for the really hard stuff we go through, and thanking Him for the trust and hope that we can have in Him, that He's working for good through those difficult things, and then also that we can see the work that He's doing in the midst of those challenges. Yeah, that's really beneficial um, too, because gratitude isn't something that's meant to be. I don't want us to confuse gratitude with joy, because joy is the fruit of the Spirit and it comes out of God. God grows it in us, in our hearts. And so, gratitude doesn't bring you joy, right? Because God's the giver and grower and producer of joy. I'm just saying gratitude helps us to be more perceptive of the joy that God is growing in us. And gratitude is something that we can do even if our circumstances don't seem something to be grateful for. Even in hard times, we can find things that we're grateful for. And also, even as Christians, this sounds really hard, but we're called to be grateful for our challenges. I don't remember exactly where it is, but I always think of Romans 5, 3 through, actually, I think it's Romans 5, 3 through 5. It might be Romans 8. But I think it's Romans 5, 3 through 5. I think not only that, but we rejoice in our suffering, for we know that our suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope will not put us to shame, for the love of God has been poured in our hearts. The Holy Spirit has been gifted to us. I think of that verse a lot. And it says to rejoice in suffering, to be thankful in hard times, because we see the good that's done through it at the end. But there's another verse that someone shared with me, and I don't remember what verse it was, but it actually said to be thankful in the midst of the struggle, because we can see God in the midst of the struggle too. And so perhaps try Googling that later if you want to try to find that verse. But that stands out to me too, because I often am focused and thinking about, like, okay, God, I know you're doing something good through this hard time, but to know that God is actually present with us in that hard time, that's something to be grateful for and thankful for, is that, hey, even when we're facing challenges, God's right here and He's got a plan and He's doing something right now with it. And we need to be thankful for that. And then the final thing I'd suggest too is actually be grateful, share gratitude with others, be thankful to others, thank them for the ways that they help them or provide for you or love them. I thank my parents all the time for all that they provide and do for me, both in how they raised me and care for me, what they financially provided as I've been growing up and also going to school now. They've been doing a lot to support me in that. And so I try to remind them often that I'm grateful for that, because I truly am, and I wouldn't be here without that. I thank my friends and family members too when I get great time to spend with them, have good conversation with them, just thank them for being them and being there and present and spending that time with me. It's always good to have that time to connect and interact. We're made for that connection, which is something I think we talked about recently. We're made for connection, both with God and with others. And then also too, even just be polite and be kind when you're out and about, when you're at a restaurant or a grocery store or something. Thank your clerks, cashiers, waiters. Be sure to be thankful of people who help you, and show that you appreciate them. Show appreciation to the mentors in your life, your church leaders, small group leaders, teachers, different things like that. Just make sure to always be kind and grateful and polite, because it makes them feel good and appreciated, but it also makes you feel good and appreciated because it helps you to remind yourself in your mind, like you've had so many positive relationships and not reaction interactions with people during the day, that it's hard not to be positive and feel good about that. And so I'd end with those three things: maybe gratitude journal, definitely praying with God, being grateful to others. Those good, all good things you could be doing. And before I close, I just want to again reiterate, and make clear that the pursuit of gratitude isn't to feel good and to feel positive all the time. It's not that your life is going to be infinitely better and you're not ever going to be upset or angry or frustrated about anything ever. But it's to say that being gratitude, it really draws us closer to Christ because it helps us to recognize all of the things that Christ already has done, is doing in our lives. It helps us to better reflect Christ with our attitude. And I find it very beneficial because it helps us to be really to enjoy much more the good times in our life, and then through the bad times to know that we're sustained and be confident and make good use of those times as well. So I'd encourage you to pursue that attitude of gratitude today. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed and you find it beneficial, please be sharing this with your friends and family. Be sharing the link to the show either on the YouTube or the Spotify page. You are the way that this audience grows, by sharing and spreading awareness. So I appreciate when you guys do that. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Please be praying for me as I go to this camp. And I hope to see you guys next week and have another episode ready, and hope you enjoyed this one as well. God bless you all, and remember, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.